Here is something the financial world does not advertise loudly enough. There is a window in your life, sometimes just a few years, sometimes a decade, where the tax code hands you an almost unfair advantage, not a loophole, not a scheme. A fully legal, government-approved mechanism that the wealthy eventually lose access to entirely. And most people living inside that window right now are doing absolutely nothing with it. This is the story of the Roth IRA during your low-income years. And if you think this does not apply to you because you're a broke grad student, a part-time worker, or someone just scraping through the early rungs of a career, you are exactly who this video is for. Let us set the scene properly. You are 23 years old, maybe 25. Maybe you are 30 and went back to school for a graduate degree. You are earning somewhere between $20,000 and $45,000 a year. After the standard deduction, your taxable income is sitting at maybe $15,000 to $35,000. The federal government looks at that number and charges you a 10 or 12% marginal tax rate. You are sitting in one of the lowest tax brackets that exist in the entire American federal system. Now fast forward 35 years. You have had a career. You have accumulated. You were pulling income from a traditional 401k, Social Security, maybe a pension, and suddenly you were paying 22, 24, or even 32% in federal taxes on every dollar you withdraw. The government waited patiently while your money compounded for 3 decades, and now it is collecting its much larger cut. This is not speculation. This is the architecture of the current tax code. The conflict built into every retirement account is simple. You are either paying taxes now, or you are paying taxes later. The entire battle is about choosing when and choosing wisely. Most people default to later without ever consciously deciding to. That default has a price, and that price compounds just like the investments do. The Roth IRA is your weapon when taxes are cheap for you personally, and they are cheapest when your income is lowest. Here's the mechanism, stripped of all the noise. With a traditional IRA or a traditional 401k, you contribute pre-tax money. You get a deduction today, your investment grows tax-deferred, and then every dollar you pull out in retirement is taxed as ordinary income. The government deferred your tax bill. It did not cancel it. There is a meaningful difference between those two things that most people never pause to register until it is too late to matter. The Roth IRA works in reverse. You contribute after-tax money, meaning you already paid your small 10 or 12% on it. The money then grows completely tax-free, not tax-deferred, tax-free. And when you withdraw it in retirement, you pay nothing. Zero. The IRS does not get to touch those earnings at all, because you already paid your dues when your dues were cheap. The math on this is brutal in the best possible way. Say you are 24 years old, earning $32,000 a year. Your marginal federal rate is 12%. You contribute $7,000 to a Roth IRA, the 2024 contribution limit for those under 50. The tax you effectively pay on that contribution, given your bracket, is around $840 in marginal cost. That is the price of admission. That $7,000, invested in a broad index fund, grows for 40 years at an average annual return of 7%. By the time you reach 64, that single year's contribution has become roughly $104,000. And you owe the government nothing, not 1 cent, because you paid $840 4 decades ago when your tax rate was at its historical floor. If you had made that same contribution into a traditional account, you would have saved that $840 up front. But at a 22% tax rate in retirement, withdrawing $104,000 would cost you nearly $23,000 in federal taxes. The math does not lie. The Roth won by more than $22,000, and the only reason it won is the timing of when you were taxed. One decision. Made once. Worth $22,000 in after-tax wealth. Now let us address the conflict directly, because there is a very real reason most people do not act on this. When you are 23 and making $30,000 a year, $7,000 is not a small number. It is roughly 23% of your gross income. It feels impossible. There's rent, there are student loans, there's a grocery bill that somehow keeps growing. The concept of locking money away until you are 59 and a half feels not just distant, but almost absurd. Retirement is not a vivid place when you are young, underpaid, and trying to get through the month. This is the exact friction point where most people decide to wait. They tell themselves they will start contributing seriously once they are making real money, once they have paid off debt, once things stabilize. This reasoning is financially costly. It is delay dressed up in perfectly understandable sounding logic, and it will cost real money that cannot be recovered through any level of future generosity. Because here is what waiting actually costs you. Every year you delay a Roth contribution in your low bracket years is a year of tax-free compounding that is permanently gone. You cannot go back and fill in previous years. The annual contribution limit is a use it or lose it figure. Miss 2025, and that window is closed forever. The IRS does not offer grace periods for youth or financial hardship. The calendar moves in one direction only. And the window closes from above, not just from below. The Roth IRA has income eligibility limits. As of 2024, single filers earning above $161,000 begin to phase out of eligibility, with full ineligibility above $176,000. Married filers face a phase-out beginning at $240,000. The very people who most comfortably afford $7,000 annually are the same people the IRS eventually locks out of the Roth entirely. The account was structurally designed for people who struggle to afford it. That irony is not accidental. It is the nature of tax advantages before high earners engineer their way around them via the backdoor Roth conversion strategy, which adds complexity and cost. This is the underlying tension that makes low-income Roth contributions so strategically important. You are currently eligible because your income is low. You are in the ideal bracket to make contributions that deliver the most long-term value. And one day, if your career develops as intended, you will be neither eligible nor in a low bracket. You will be earning too much to contribute directly and paying too much in taxes to wish you had started earlier when the door was open. Graduate students deserve particular attention here because the situation is both more complicated and more urgent. For years, stipends and fellowship income sat in a murky classification gray area that prevented many doctoral students from contributing to a Roth IRA at all. The earned income requirement is strict. You must have wages, salary, or self-employment income that equals or exceeds your contribution amount. Scholarship and fellowship income used to fall outside that definition for many students, effectively locking an entire demographic out of this advantage at the precise moment they were most tax eligible. Following legislative updates, however, many graduate student stipends are now treated as taxable compensation that qualifies as earned income for IRA contribution purposes. If you are receiving a taxable stipend and paying income taxes on it, there is a real possibility you are eligible to contribute to a Roth IRA right now. This is not universally true. The specifics depend entirely on how your institution classifies your payment, but it is worth confirming with a tax professional because the reward for doing so could be hundreds of thousands of tax-free dollars, compounding silently for the next 30 or 40 years. Part-time workers face their own version of this equation. If you are working part-time and earning $18,000 a year, you may only be eligible to contribute up to the full amount of your earned income, landing below the standard annual cap. But contributing even $3,000 or $4,000 consistently during this period builds a Roth balance that will compound into something genuinely significant. The amount does not need to be the maximum to be meaningful. The habit and the timing produce results that no amount of future contributions can fully replicate. There is one more dimension worth addressing: the Roth's structural flexibility as an emergency fallback during low-income years, which is something most other retirement accounts simply cannot offer. With a traditional 401k or IRA, taking money out before age 59.5 typically triggers a 10% early withdrawal penalty stacked on top of ordinary income taxes. That penalty punishes people who need access to their own money during hard stretches, a particularly cruel design feature for someone already financially strained. The Roth IRA plays by different rules, and that contrast is notoriously understated in mainstream financial advice. Your contributions, the principal you put in, not the earnings, can be withdrawn at any time for any reason, with no taxes and no penalty. You already paid tax on that money. It is yours without conditions. This makes the Roth uniquely flexible for someone early in a career with legitimate concerns about liquidity. It is not a replacement for a dedicated emergency fund, but it means the Roth is not the punishing lockbox that other accounts are. That flexibility is real, and it matters more than most people assume when they are deciding whether a Roth even makes sense at their income level. There is also the question of future tax policy, which introduces a layer of strategic uncertainty worth naming plainly. Nobody knows where federal tax rates will stand in 30 years, but several forces push consistently in one direction: an aging population drawing heavily from Social Security and Medicare, mounting national debt, and infrastructure obligations that grow rather than shrink over time. Historically, tax rates in America have been significantly higher than they are today. Contributing to a Roth now when your rate is already at its floor is a hedge against a future where rates rise broadly, not just for you personally. So where does this leave you if you are currently inside that low-income window? Open the account. Vanguard, Fidelity, and Schwab all offer Roth IRAs with no minimums and no account fees. Automate a monthly contribution, even if it is modest. Put it in a total market index fund or target date fund and leave the allocation to the fund manager. Then walk away and do not touch it for 30 years unless the alternative is genuine financial collapse. The window you are in right now, the low bracket years that feel like a waiting room, is not a penalty phase. You need to survive before real financial life begins. It is the most strategically valuable tax period you may ever experience. The money you move through a Roth IRA during these years will be the most efficiently taxed money in your entire financial life. That is not a minor distinction. It is the difference between accumulating wealth and accumulating wealth earmarked for a future tax bill you cannot avoid. The conflict is real. Contributing when money is already stretched is painful. But the cost of not doing it is paid slowly, invisibly, and in full 30 years from now, in a tax bracket you cannot negotiate, on money that could have grown completely free. The Roth IRA does not reward the richest investor. It rewards the earliest one. And right now, whether you feel it or not, that might be you.